button. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the one more session of Education USA Bosnia and Herzegovina. Today, we have a great honor to have Justin van Dyke with us. Justin represents New York University campus in Abu Dhabi. And he's been in Bosnia quite a lot of times. I think he traveled to at least 5 different places in Bosnia, at least.
Yeah.
Been to Sarajevo like twice a year, to Mostar twice a year, visited Travnik and some other places. So I think that you are pretty familiar with the profile of Bosnian students, that you like us. I know that we had a lot of students so far applying to New York, NYU Abu Dhabi. And we had quite some students who actually attended or attend currently the school. It's a great school. I think that you will talk to students more about it. I just want to say, please make sure to follow closely what Justin is saying. And if you do have any questions, please feel to ask me or Justin. And just because I forgot to mention, my name is Alexandra Popovic, and I work as Education Advisor in Sarajevo. Justin, please.
Great. Thanks so much for the introduction. As Alex said, I've been visiting Bosnia and Sarajevo in particular for probably almost a decade now. So it's a place that's very familiar to me and very dear to my heart. And it does make me really sad that I'm not here this fall to see you in person. But I will do everything I can to provide you the same information virtually. Before I dive into the session and I talk about New York University and its campuses and the admissions process, I just want to acknowledge the times that we're in now. I know that under normal circumstances, this time in your life as high school students, trying to figure out where you're going to study, what you're going to do, all of these kinds of things are very stressful, and there are a lot of really tough decisions. And it's even harder now because of the pandemic. So I just want to let you all know that as an institution, as a university, as an admissions counselor, we're here for you to help you with whatever you need to go through this process. There are a number of things that we've changed in the admissions process this year to help adjust to this. And I'll talk about this more in depth in the presentation, but just for an example, we are test optional this year for students. So if you're not able to access a standardized test, you do not have to submit one. I'll talk more about the details later, but just know that if this pandemic is impacting you academically or personally or physically in some way that hinders your application process, let us know about it. We're here. We want to help you through it and help you submit the very best application that you can. So since I'm talking about New York University, probably the best place to start is in New York City at our campus there. It's a really unique university as far as US universities go. If you've thought about colleges in the US or seen them in movies or read about them in books, and you think about this kind of quiet, calm campus with a very neat quad and lots of green area, that's not NYU. NYU is loud and cacophonous. It's really in the middle of the city. I mean, you're looking at the campus here. We don't have campus walls. It's in Greenwich Village and Manhattan and New York City, right in the heart of the city. And it was founded very intentionally to be this kind of place, to be a university for all of the communities of New York City, not just the wealthy and elite, but everyone else who's a part of this community. And we've always placed a really strong emphasis on being both in and of the city. So not only is NYU located in the city itself, but it's a part of the cultural fabric of the city. It's very important for us to be in this place where you have access to all of these cultural institutions, and that you're a part of this community, and that your learning doesn't end, or stay inside circumscribed inside these campus walls. So I would say that's really the heart of NYU in New York. We have a huge range of programs that I don't have the expertise or time to cover here, but just know that it's one of the largest private universities in the US and one of the most international. And I think the key thing about this being an international university is that it's not just in New York, but it's in and of the world. So the newest campus to open is the one in Shanghai. It's the same degree, same university as NYU, but it differs in a couple ways. Probably the most obvious one, aside from its location, is the student body. The student body is actually half Chinese students and half international students. So there's a much stronger emphasis on learning about Chinese language and culture. In fact, if you, as a Bosnian student, came to Shanghai, to NYU Shanghai, you would be required to have a Chinese roommate in your first year. So this kind of cultural immersion begins from day one. And you're required to take Mandarin over the course of your studies. So at the end of the day, whether you're studying biology or business, you have this deeper understanding of China and East Asia. The campus that I represent was founded with a really unique purpose. The campus in Abu Dhabi was founded as kind of a global honors program. So to bring the best and the brightest students from all over the world, regardless of their nationality, background, socioeconomic background, to give them the opportunity to study at a very high level, and to do research and work with some of the world's leading professors in an environment that really is extraordinarily international. Like the campus in New York City, we do have students from over 115 different countries. But what makes this campus different is we don't have a majority from any one part of the world. So it's kind of radically diverse in that sense. We have about 15% of the population are local Emiratis, since we're located in Abu Dhabi, and another 15% or so are from the US and North America. And after that, probably the same amount from Europe, from Latin America, from Asia, from Africa. So at the end of the day, it's hard to put your finger on it and say, this is the culture of this campus, just because people are coming from so many different backgrounds and bringing these cultures with them. The other thing I want to highlight about this campus is that we do have very generous scholarships and financial support, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that and the rest of the presentation. So the idea is, Abu Dhabi, New York, Shanghai, no matter which one of these campuses you're still at NYU. In all of these locations, you're taking NYU classes with NYU professors and earning an NYU degree. But it actually doesn't end there. We also have campuses in all of these academic centers. So each one of these cities, in each one of these cities, we have permanent, classrooms, academic buildings, and residences, so you can kind of move seamlessly from campus to campus. Again, the academic centers are a bit smaller, and so you can't go to Prague and do a full 4-year degree, but you could choose to maybe spend one semester or a January term there. And I can talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. So I'll switch now and dive more into the application process. But before I talk about the nuts and bolts, the specific things that you need to do in order to apply, I want to talk about who the ideal NYU Abu Dhabi student is. And I would also say that this is true of really any very competitive international university. These are qualities that all of these US universities are looking for in their students. Of course, academic excellence, first and foremost. We're looking for students who have strong academic skills and can complete research and analysis, and have this very strong academic foundation. But it doesn't end just there. As you'll see as we're going through this, it's a very holistic process. So we look at more than just grades. So it's not enough just to be really smart and to get good grades on the exams, but we're also looking for a sense of intellectual curiosity. That's just a big way of saying we want students who love to learn, students who are doing it not just because your teachers and your parents are telling you that you have to get a good grade, but because you're fascinated by the subjects, because you'd be reading about them anyway, because you have that love of learning and gaining new experiences and knowledge. You really can't have one without the other. You need to have the abilities and that real drive to learn. We also want students with broad interests. This is especially true of a liberal arts and sciences curriculum, where you have the opportunity to explore. You can actually, wait up to 2 years before declaring your major. So you have that time to kind of try different things. Of course, if you're really sure you want to be an engineer, that's perfectly fine. But we're looking for students with a little bit of an open mind who are not opposed to trying a little bit from other fields of study during their time. We're also looking for students with some kind of leadership potential. I know a lot of times when students hear this, they think, oh, I have to be the class president, or I have to be captain of the football team. And great if you are, that's fantastic. But leadership comes in a lot of different forms. So I encourage you to think more broadly about this. And I'll talk about this more later on in the presentation. But in short, what we're looking for is students who pursue things that they're passionate about and have accomplishments in those areas. And in particular, I would say, especially for NYU Abu Dhabi, we're looking for students who have global leadership potential. I know that sounds really big and lofty, but it really is what we are preparing our students to do. No matter what they end up studying and what degree they graduate with, that through their experiences and their work on campus, they will have the ability to make a positive change in the world. So that really is the end goal. So I know this is lots of, kind of touchy-feely, fuzzy kinds of things that you may be asking yourself. So how is this going to show up in my test scores from my school? How can you find out if I'm a global citizen or I have intellectual curiosity from looking at my test scores? And this Venn diagram is really the answer to that. And it is a Venn diagram for a reason, because there is no part that works without the other. As I mentioned before, academics is really the cornerstone. It's the base on which everything else rests. But we don't look at just test grades. We'll look at transcripts, so your grades from your last 3 or 4 years of secondary school. But we'll also look at what kinds of classes you're taking. Are you taking harder classes if they're available to you in areas where you're more talented? Of course, this doesn't mean we expect you to take super hard math if you're more of an art student, but we do want to see that you are taking advantage of what's available to you. And particularly for NYU Abu Dhabi, we want to see that you're going above and beyond, that not only are you getting good grades, but you also have some academic honors. Maybe you've participated in some kind of academic Olympiad or gotten some award for being the best physics student in your school. These kinds of things that will set you apart from other students. We also look at your extracurricular activities. So this is where we can see leadership and initiative. And they can be these typical things like sports and music and dance, but it doesn't end there. It could be volunteering or taking care of a little brother or sister or an elderly family member. Really anything that takes up your time and your dedication. These kinds of things that reflect on your abilities to have accomplishments are things that we want to hear about. So if you feel like you don't have a lot of extracurricular activities, or maybe that you don't have the ones that are kind of typically American in some way, do keep an open mind, because as admissions officers, we do look at this broader category. And finally, the personal fit is really all of these things that are more qualitative. So these are not your test scores or your list of extracurricular activities, but it's really where we see how you would fit in with the university. Also, what your passions are, what your goals are, and what you want to accomplish during your time at university. So that kind of particular fit for the university comes into play as well. So now I'll go through all of these typical requirements. I won't spend too much time here, for one, because you have an amazing person at the Education USA Advising Center there to help you with all of these technical kinds of things. So for those more in-depth questions, you can ask her. I'll just highlight a few tips as we go through these. So in terms of the application form, there are a number of different applications depending on which university you're applying to. I've just listed a few of the systems. Practically all of them are online, so that you can do everything online. NYU uses the Common App, and you can submit things directly through there. There's typically an application fee, but there are fee waivers that are available. If the fee would be a financial burden for you or your family, you can just request that in the Common App, and just say that your counselor or your teacher will confirm that this is the case. And at this point, please feel free to interrupt me as well. I know I'm going on and on. So if there's something that comes up, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. It's kind of hard for me to see exactly who's in the room. So yeah, don't feel afraid to talk over me if there's something that comes up. In terms of the deadline system, US universities have a number of different decision deadlines. In short, we have early decision and regular decision. The obvious difference between these two is that if you apply early, you receive your results early. So if you apply to NYU November 1st, you find out, or January 5th for regular decision, you find out by the beginning of April. So that's the biggest difference. The other is that early decision is a binding deadline for most universities. This means that you're making a promise to attend the university if you're offered a place. So it's your way of saying, this is my #1 school, this is my dream school. If you'll have me here, I'm there 100%. So it makes the process a little faster for you. And it also helps us know that you're very serious, and helps us know that we can count on you to come if you are offered a place. The other kind of deadline is early action. NYU doesn't currently have this, but many universities do. It's the same principle of early decision, except without the binding nature. So this means you can apply early, but you don't have to make the commitment to attend if you're offered a place. And then the third category is restrictive early action. This means that it's not binding, but you're not allowed to apply to any other universities, early action or early decision. So it's kind of the in-between between early action and early decision. In terms of standardized testing, there are a lot of options, and it requires a lot of research to figure out both what the university accepts as part of their policy, and also which one of those will fit in to your academic abilities, also what's available in your location. So what I just want to emphasize here is do your research and find out what universities are asking for. As I mentioned before, NYU this year is test optional. So if you don't have access to one of these standardized tests, then you do not have to submit a test this year. If you do have access, great. A good result will be a big benefit to your application, but we will not penalize you for not being able to access these. One test that we do require this year, however, is an English language test. You can see a few of the different tests that are accepted. This year we are accepting the Duolingo English test. So if you don't have any other options, you can take this and submit it. And we are actually offering fee waivers for this year. So if you're applying to NYU Abu Dhabi, you can, once you submit your application, just write to me and we can send you a waiver so that you can take the test results. Again, do your research and find out which universities accept which exams. There are some universities that are completely test optional. So if you're looking for those in particular, you can go to fairtest.org and find out which exams are available. In ordinary years, I mean, everything is kind of extraordinary this year, but ordinarily, we do realize that most exams, school leaving exams in Europe, come after the application deadline to US universities. If this is the case for you, for example, if you're doing the IB program, you can submit predicted IBs. So we do accept predicted scores and that in those cases. So in terms of evaluating a student's academic achievement, we'll look at, for the most part, the main thing we focus on will be the high school transcript. So this is your last 3 or 4 years of high school. So we'll look at that academic performance, but we'll also, as I mentioned before, look at the rigor of the curriculum that you're following. NYU Abu Dhabi in particular really looks to understand your own academic context. So I know some students say, oh, I don't have the option to take a higher level math class, even though I'm really good at math, or we don't have a theater class and I really want to study theater. This is not a problem. We're just really looking to see that you've taken advantage of what's available to you. So if you don't have more rigorous courses, or you don't have other options, you won't be penalized for that. But we are looking for students who do go out of their way to identify those kinds of opportunities and to have accomplishments in those areas. The same thing goes for academic honors. If there are different extracurricular academic things that you can do, like Olympiads or being part of some kind of national competition, those can really help boost your application and give a more complete picture. At the end of the day, NYU Abu Dhabi and most universities who have holistic admissions don't just look at the test score and leave it at that. We do want to see the test score and then everything else around this. So it's more than just one number. In terms of extracurricular activities, we just want to see, how do you spend your free time? What kinds of things do you take on? They can be these typical things like sports and music, volunteering, arts, even paid work. And as I mentioned before, family responsibilities, if you have those kinds of things. When you're describing these, I really encourage you to provide context. In the Common Application, there's a place for you to list the title and your position, the name of the activity. Make sure that you don't just write a short abbreviation and leave it at that. We do want to see, to get more context. So, if you find yourself writing just tennis and nothing else there, that's not really going to impress us. We want to hear, what kind of tournaments did you compete in, or were you coaching younger students? What specific things did you do with that activity? What kinds of things did you accomplish? So as you're choosing your activities, make sure to provide this context. And it can be a kind of signal to you. If you find yourself just listing off a bunch of things that you just participated in, it may not be as strong as choosing things where you actually dedicated a serious amount of time and had accomplishments. Some students will try to do as many activities as they can just to list them on their application. But at the end of the day, that's something admissions will see. If it was a genuine activity that you devoted time and practiced, or if it was something that you just wanted to list on your application. So you still have time to kind of think about that in terms of your engagements. Make sure that you are devoting your energy to these things and having accomplishments in these areas. At the end of the day, it varies more about quality than quantity. So the goal is not to have a huge list, but to have a smaller group of extracurricular activities that you can really tell us about, that you really have something to say about, and have things that you've accomplished in those areas. So it's important to keep that in mind as you go on. For the essays, this is a really big part of the application, and this is very different from the kind of essay that you would write for most universities in Europe or the UK. I'll start off by talking about what it is not. So the essay, the personal essay, is not an academic essay. It's not a place. It's not the time for you to talk about some research project that you've done or what a great math student you are. It's more of a personal endeavor. It's a chance for you to tell us really anything that we can't find elsewhere in the application. So it shouldn't be a list of extracurricular activities or a list of your accomplishments. It's a chance to make yourself stand out from the rest of the students who are applying, and really give admissions a chance to see, what you're passionate about, what motivates you, and also reveal a bit of your personality. So it takes some time to think through this. This is not something that you just want to sit down and write, one evening and send in. It takes a little bit more thought and self-reflection. And I won't go into more depth about this, for one, because I could probably talk for another hour or 2 hours on it. It's that nuanced. But also because we hold other webinars specifically on essay writing. So if this is something that you'd like to explore more, I'll drop a link in the chat at the end so you can sign up for one of those where we go into a little bit more depth. Addition to the personal statement, there's also the college-specific essay. For NYU, this is a very simple question. Why NYU? So why us? Out of the thousands of universities you could apply to, why are you choosing NYU? But by the same turn, also, why you? Out of the tens of thousands of students who are applying, what makes you a particularly good fit for this campus? So it takes a bit more thought and research, and we're really looking to see that that you have come to an understanding of what it is exactly that you can imagine yourself doing there. What makes it a fit, not just for every student. If you're writing your essay and you say, I want to come, because you have the best engineering program in this specific area in the world, I want to come here. That's true for everyone. You need to personalize that and say, what kind of motivates you? What's the personal connection between yourself and the university? So do spend the time to think about this, and don't just repeat things that you find on the website, but really put some thought into what you can imagine contributing to the campus. This is especially important if you're applying to multiple campuses for NYU. You can actually apply to up to 3 campuses, but we are looking to see that you put genuine thought into it. So if you just check off all 3 boxes, but only talk about New York and your why NYU essay, then you're probably not going to be considered very strongly for those other campuses. So I would encourage you to definitely do that kind of research yourself, and be able to present a compelling story about why you and why NYU, or whichever university you're applying to. We also require letters of recommendation. So we have 2 are required from NYU, 1 from a counselor, and 1 from a teacher. We know that most schools in Europe do not have university counselors. So it's up to you to identify someone in your school who can fulfill this role. They don't have to have the title of university counselor or careers advisor or something like that. But it's important for you to choose someone who is a school official and can submit official documents on your behalf. So they will have to send your official grades and standardized testing if you're submitting that, and information about your school. So it's important to pick someone who can go through this process, preferably someone who has a strong English ability, so they can navigate all of the common application in these forms and these kinds of things. And also, this person needs to write a letter of recommendation for you. Oftentimes, students find that this can be an English teacher or maybe a pedagogue, someone who's responsible for these kinds of things in school. So it's up to you to find that person. And then the second letter of recommendation should come from a teacher who's had you in the classroom. So this is someone who can speak more in depth about your academic abilities in one subject. We also, if you would like, can submit an optional 3rd letter. The idea behind this is that you can have a counselor present 1 letter that just kind of talks about how awesome you are overall. The teacher will talk specifically about you and an academic area. And then you can have someone from outside of the school, maybe a coach or a supervisor at work, who can talk about what you do in your extracurricular activities. So it gives this more rounded kind of 360-degree view of you. Again, the 3rd letter is optional, but we do encourage you to submit one of those letters if you have the time and access to those, to a letter from someone like that. For some universities, an interview is the final step of the application process. For the Abu Dhabi campus, this has traditionally been the candidate weekend. So since the beginning of this campus, we have flown students from their homes to the campus in Abu Dhabi for a 3-day weekend, where basically you get to live on campus, take sample classes, hang out with current students, but also, go to the beach, go to the mall, go to the desert, kind of see what the city is like, see what this country is like, and really make the best decision for yourself if it's the right place for you. It is not an evaluative event, so it's not there to make some final judgment on your application, but just to make sure that it's the right fit. Obviously, in the world today with the pandemic, we're not able to do a lot of traveling. So for the last candidate weekend we had in the spring, this was done virtually. It probably will be the same in the coming year. It will just depend, like a lot of things in the world now. It's up in the air, but this is something that we will attempt to that we will hold virtually if we're not able to do in person. Of course, Skype and Zoom are always possibilities, and there are a lot of universities that have this. So at the end of the day, just do your research and figure out what kind of components are there. For some universities, this interview is more academic and evaluative, and it tests you on certain things. For others, it's just a chance to familiarize yourself a bit more with the university. The last thing I'll talk about is financial aid. So this is a completely separate process from the application for admission to the university. This is all done through the CSS profile for NYU. This is in order to be eligible for the financial support, you do need to complete this. Different universities will have different profiles or forms to fill out, and also have different types of financial aid. Again, I won't go into too much depth here because Alex can help you out with these details, but I just want to highlight that for NYU Abu Dhabi in particular, we have very generous need-based aid, and we're able to meet students and families' full demonstrated need. So in short, if you apply and you're admitted, we'll provide you with all of the funding you need to enable you to come to the university. Do make sure to, no matter which university you're applying to kind of research what types of financial support they offer, and also where you can get different kinds of financial support. Some of them can come from universities, some from external organizations and other scholarships. Sometimes you can end up building together your own package from different sources. But again, this is something that takes a little bit of research to figure out. So some final tips before I open up the floor for questions. Obviously, start on time. Start your preparations as early as possible so that you can do your research and really find the answers to all of your questions, and submit the most complete and most informed application that you can. Do your research in detail. As I mentioned in talking about the why NYU essay, don't just repeat back to us facts that you found on the website, but make sure you've identified a personal connection. Maybe it's reading about a course that you would like to take with a professor, or some kind of club that you feel like you could contribute to, or some kind of event that you would take part in. So do make that personal connection. Also, when you're choosing people to fill out your letters of recommendation, make sure that you ask them, and with plenty of time before the application deadline, so that for one, they have time to consider your request and to gather things. And if they have questions, they have time to come back to you. And it goes without saying, pick people who know you well and who will respond positively and have good things to say about you. I know that sounds kind of obvious, but do make sure that you choose people who that you're choosing people who know you well and will have some positive things to pass along. Also for the essay, as I mentioned before, this is not something to just start writing the night before and write in a couple hours, but it does take some kind of reflection. So make sure that you give yourself some time to think, write a few drafts and also proofread it, and share it with your teachers and your friends and your Education USA advisor, and have them give you a little bit of feedback instead of just submitting it right away. Another thing I would say, and that sounds super obvious, but every year you would be surprised the number of students that do this, is just proofread your whole application. Look out for typos and grammar mistakes. This is your one chance to impress admission, so this really should be your best, most polished English, and free from errors. So make sure that you're presenting your best possible self. And also deadlines. The deadlines really are not flexible. So make sure that you plan ahead and get those things in ahead of time. And I know I've said that the deadlines aren't flexible. Obviously, this year there are a lot of extreme situations going on. There are a lot of external factors. So if there is something that's affecting you, whether it's your health or family problems or any of the other myriad issues that are coming up with this pandemic, let us know. This year we are really dedicated. This year and every year we are dedicated to working with you, to making sure that that you can present your best application. Do make sure to give yourself enough time to process all these things and pull them together. And one last thing I want to highlight is that, you know, if there is something that has affected you regarding the pandemic, this year in the common application, there's a specific box for you to talk about this. So if you were thinking about sharing something in your essay or some other place, it's probably best to share those experiences or whatever may have affected you in the question box that's dedicated specifically to the pandemic. So I'll go ahead and open up the floor for questions. Please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask your questions, or if you're a little more shy, you can always type them in the question box, but I'm more than happy to answer them.
Before questions start, I just want to ask Adla and Aidina if they could, before they leave, or just click on this form that I actually just put in the chat box. We are actually selecting people who, I mean, we're asking people to do student satisfaction survey. It only has a couple of questions just for Education USA services to be better. Before also, I want to go back to your, what you were saying, Justin, about the letters of recommendation essays. In Bosnia, we are not really used to talking about ourselves. We are not used to opening up in a way that US colleges, starting from Abu Dhabi campus in NYU Abu Dhabi to other schools that actually want to want to read. Like, we are not used to talking about ourselves. So it is very important for you who are today here, but also everybody else who will be watching this recording later on, to contact Education USA advisors beforehand, and just let us tell you, you know, what kinds of essay, you know, we have a whole range of, you know, great essays to show you. We had a course this summer, a 4-week-long course on how to write a good essay. So we can really, really help you. Just make sure to contact us, because, as I said, I've been working as an education essay advisor for 11 years. It's actually, next week is my anniversary, 11th anniversary.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. And I've seen lots of essays, and the worst essays are, like, you know, when we are talking about people that, for example, that we admire. I had, a few years back, I had a student who was writing about her aunt, you know, how her aunt, you know, went to United States very young on au pair program, and then she started community college, and then she, you know, got transferred to 4-year college, and then she got a great job. And I was like, but this is not essay about you. Like, US colleges do not learn anything about who you are. Please rewrite completely. Like, I have nothing to fix here, because it's a completely topic that is not required. Also, I want to make sure that you know, in about 15 days, so not next week, but week after, I will be holding a webinar on my own on how to ask for the best recommendation letters. So I have already prepared a letter for high school teachers in Bosnia, asking them, like, you know, please talk about this or that or that or that, or, you know, I gave a lot of, you know, questions that they can answer about their students. And I will be talking about that in that recommendation letter writing in that webinar. So I would actually invite you to register for the webinar if you haven't already, because it will be a lot of useful information. Again, our teachers in Bosnia, most of them, there are a lot of more and more notable exceptions, I have to admit, people who have been writing recommendation letters for quite some time, who have actually who do know how to write it and what American universities are looking for in the letters. But again, lots of them do not know. So make sure that you book your time, register, so I can actually tell you what to tell them when asking for the letter. Just, yeah, a little bit of announcement.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. This year, as we all know, has been quite a crazy ride, and we are adapting and doing our best to give our services to students and to US universities in the best way possible. So, yeah. If you have any questions for me or for Justin, we are still here.
Hi, I just wanted to ask one question, if it's okay. Related to your like grad school programs, are the deadlines and kind of like I guess requirements are kind of similar to grad school as well, but I was mostly wondering the deadlines and fellowships, how are those for grad school programs?
Actually, they're completely different. They can differ from school to school and program to program. So unfortunately, since I work with undergraduate programs, I'm not familiar with them. But if you want to send me an email, I can certainly direct you to the person who can answer it for you.
Yes, and Dadla, as I said, I didn't have time to tell you the answer already to your email. Actually, Facebook message. I will get back to you as soon as this webinar is finished. We can schedule a meeting tomorrow, and then we can talk about those things a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah.
And I also just put a few links in the chat box as well. So the first one is for other events. If you're interested in other programs, you can find some other webinars that are going on there. We also have some essay writing workshops and things like that. Not to pull away from Alex's, so attend Alex's if that one's up, but there's some other fun things that you might want to look into. And also, if this inspired you and you're excited to apply to NYU, you can click on the link below and book a one-on-one meeting with me, and we can have a conversation about how to go through the application process and any specific questions you have about academics or just what life is like in Abu Dhabi.
Also, yeah, I realized I'm muted. If you're interested in learning more about Abu Dhabi, I can actually show you my pictures from NYU Abu Dhabi. I was lucky enough to be invited, I think it was 2 years ago, to visit NYU Abu Dhabi, to spend some time there, to hear what they do, to see the campus, and I have pictures on my Facebook to prove it. So if that is it, if there are no more questions, thank you for coming. And for people watching this recording later on, thank you for watching. Please make sure that you know my my email address. And you do probably know, because this is where you received this Zoom link today. You see the Justin's contacts. We are here, both of us are here for any of your questions or any type of consultations. Thank you, and see you next time.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.